Good evening. Thank you for popping by, and thank you for allowing me to be your guide tonight with this topic at hand. Thinking about it, I was thinking, I'm not really going to be focusing too much. I'm not going to be diving into MBTI like academically. The main point is I want to bring up how it relates, how it interacts, relates, how it's structured, and how it's going to be useful for people as a community, and to sort of get to grips and grasp some of the concepts. Hello, Mr. Kush. Thank you for being here. I see you're doing a stream later on tonight. We might be here for a while. I hope it will be under 2 hours. Now, this is going to be quite a lot of information to take on board. So brace yourselves, I suppose. Have your notepads ready. You could always come back and revise it. Let me just. All right. Okay. I've got an avatar on the screen. Good. All right. Oh, it's not tonight. Oh, it's Thursday. Okay, fine. Okay, all well and good. So this might be a bit clunky how I present it. I'm apologizing for that. And by all means, if you feel of your own, if you've interest, if you want to cross-reference it or refer to other channels and topics to get more of an understanding, please do so. This is just like my interpretation and my point of view or perspective, and how I sort of I'm structuring it or whatever. So I suppose a few disclaimers to begin with. Like the MBTI is a kind of pseudoscience. A lot of people kind of what's the right way of saying it? They raise their nose to it or whatever. It's outdated. You can look into the history of how it came about. Carl Jung and the Myers-Briggs family or whatever. So it has changed over the years. In its infancy, I think it was generally just basically a test that was categorizing and noting observations and patterns that were being seen in different people. So as the typology community has grown, the practicality, it has the way in which MBTI is implemented has changed, and many people have contributed to where we are today. So it's evolved over time, but it is a outdated. It's just simply put, it's a system. It's not an actual science. So immediately it would appeal to the more intuitive type of people, and not so much the factual data analysis, sensor in reality types. So I have encountered people before who are like, I don't fit any of these 4-letter names. I can't be put into a category. And it's like, sorry, there's a special category for you as well. Everyone will fit into the typology one way or another. That's how it was built to categorize for every type of combination of thinking process. So there is a little mathematical elements to it. Now, some of you probably, you spout off these abbreviations, ENFP or INTJ or INFJ. Those are the sort of common ones, ISFP, whatever. And really, those letters on their own mean nothing. And when you're throwing these out there to people, hello everybody, I'm a so-and-so kind of thing, you're kind of, what you might not realize what you're doing is you're jumping the gun a bit, and you're reaching an endpoint and missing out everything in between. And you're sort of hoping that the other person you're telling this to has no idea what you're talking about. Because if you were to say this to someone who has an understanding of MBTI, more than just these letters and stereotypes, then they'd be breaking you down. These 4-letter labels are not. These aren't. Please do not be using it as a way of virtue signaling. Like look at me. I'm this. I'm a special breed of cattle, and this is what I am. They all have pros and they all have blind spots and disadvantages. So straight away, this isn't a competition. You don't win any bragging points. And with the pros and cons, in of itself, yes, you can use them to help have a better understanding of how you think, but it really is more effective when you start to relate that to other people. And this is where the real benefit of this understanding, this model that has been formulated, comes into effect, because then you can get past, or potentially get past, communication barriers, communication breakdowns, have better interactions, see things from other people's point of view, and as a society will mesh together a lot better. Because you wouldn't want to, it would be impractical and detrimental if everyone was the same type. You do need this variation, this diversity in the types. So every type has its place and use. And don't be focused on the percent, like how rare one personality type is to another. That's erroneous. It's not really necessary. And then a few other little sort of points to notice, to mention that this is not your identity. This is simply just how you process information, how it enters you, how you intercept it, how you process it, analyze it, come to a sort of decision-making crossroads, and then carry out that action. It does not factor in your preference. Well, it is about preferences, but it doesn't, the nuances of the human spirit and your personality as such. And because of that, that's why you can have two people who are the same type, but they're very different in real life. So, and that can make it also confusing when you're trying to type someone. What is it you're dealing with? Who is it you're sort of dealing with? What kind of person you're dealing with? Because they don't quite fit this mold. And a little add-on to that point about when people throw these 4 letters out in a kind of virtue sort of branding of themselves, shortcutting, they're doing themselves a disservice when they do that. Is, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, it's just slipped my mind. What was it? There was another point I forgot. Apologies. Oh, it's going to bug me now. Okay. Oh, is that irritating? Okay, I'll get rid of that ticker. How do I get rid of it? Hide it. And there you go. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay. So let me share a screen and straight away derail from the MBTI. Share a screen. Let's just get into it, hey? Okay. So you should be seeing diagram. How do I get rid of myself? Will that do? You don't really need to see my avatar just in the corner. Okay. You might be familiar with something like this. Parts of the brain. We're going to be doing a lot of neuroscience, I suppose. You've got your frontal lobe here, Can you see my mouse cursor? Yes, I think you can. The prefrontal cortex, cerebellum, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe. Just a little tangent. I was talking to someone about your reflexes, how your sight takes longer to travel to get processed, and there's a lot of information to process. So when it comes to something shocking, you will react audio through your ears to a sound. You'll jump quicker to you'll respond quicker to a sound than you will to something visual, because it goes from your eyes all the way to the back of your head. And that's why in boxing, I think it's an illegal move to hit the opponent in the back of their head. They black out, their vision blacks out. And to jump the gun way ahead, because I'm sure some of you will be wondering at some point during this stream, well, what about dysfunctional people, delusional people, stupid people, dummies and things like that? Well, they, generally speaking, have a lack of prefrontal cortex. And if you can read this, I'm not sure, can you read that just about? Do I need to zoom in? The prefrontal cortex, responsible for sort of higher thinking, will have your judgment. Self-control, for example, will be there. Inhibition, well, self-control is inhibition, yeah. Your personality, emotional traits. Not so, yes, but I think that's in this sort of region, really. See, the temporal lobe has your feelings. Language production, well, that's sort of in other sections of the brain as well. Motor planning, not necessarily motor actions, but it will include things like precision. So a lot of cluster Bs will have deficits here, and that will interfere. So you might be familiar with some sort of diagram like this. Okay. We're going to be coming back to this particular diagram in probably the next stream. This stream is laying the groundwork for an understanding in preparation for the next stream, really. So I need to get everyone kind of up to speed and familiar with brain anatomy, because we're going to be hacking the brain going forwards into the future. And here's another quick diagram, which we'll be using again at some point, probably in the next stream. So yeah, so here is like number 3, motor functions, or number 9, sensory area. I'm sure language was around there somewhere. Okay, so with those two, I'm basically just illustrating that different sections of your brain have functions, roles to play, and your brain is communicating with itself with a dialogue along the neurotransmitters, and obviously is connected. Why am I mentioning all this? Because all right, so here's another brain, bird's eye view. You might be familiar with the idea of your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere. So let's put a dividing line down the middle. So some of those functions we can list out here. So on the left side is your more logical, analytical, efficiency, precision, calculations, your details, your facts, memories, past, present, reality. And then so when you're right-handed, and this is one of the suggestions why most people are right-handed, is because you're using your left side of your brain. There's a crossover. The left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and vice versa. So on the other side, we have our more imaginating, creative concepts, patterns, connections, empathetic, values, priority, and defensive behaviors, a more emotional side. So not to be political, but you can kind of be like probably the woke over here, using a lot of their right hand side of their brain. And these two sides, obviously, they communicate with one another, and they work in conjunction, And in theory, you should be working as a complete organism. And it's not completely isolated. There is a little bit of plasticity where, let's say you had a brain injury, different regions can take over the jobs and they can allocate roles to other areas of the brain. So it's not strictly isolated. So we're familiar with this so far, and welcome people who's coming here. Then if I add in another line, we can divide the brain up again. Now we've got 4 quarters. Can you still see my cursor? Shall I try and get, maybe that might be a bit more easier to track. Now we've got the brain divided into 4 quarters, and it's also dividing these descriptions. So with this being said, let's add in some more bit by bit. What have you done, Billy? Right, I should have put a key here. T N F. Oh, there's a YouTube channel called TNF something. I don't think they realized that. So they owe me one for that one. So T is for thinking. Now we can see how logical, analytical, efficiency, precision. I was going to say coordination, but it's a bit like precision. That's kind of thinking stuff, calculation, thinking stuff. S is for sensory. So details, facts, your 5 senses, sight, hearing, sound, touch, smell. It has your memory, your past and present, and it's because it's kind of factual and sensitive to the sensory. It's kind of grounded in reality. It lives in the present. On the other side, so that's the left side of your brain. On the right side of your brain, you have feelings, F for feelings. Here we've got the empathetic side, the values, priority, and defense. Defense, feeling defense, right? When people get upset, very emotional. So we can see why defense will mainly will go to battle first. Usually, you might fight with some logic as well, but feelings is a good way of fighting off threat. And N for intuition. Now you might be like, why is it N and not I? And that is because we have introvert and extrovert. So the I was already taken because of introvert. So when you see I, we're talking about introvert. When you see E, we're talking about extrovert. So intuition, just get used to it. They allocate an N for it. Okay, so whatever kind of thought you might be saying to me now, like, why these 4 categories? Well, have a thought, think of something, and it will land in one of these domains. Let's say you want to go, you're hungry. I'm hungry. Well, that's a sensory. Okay, what am I going to do about it? Right, we need to go get some fish or something. Okay, so logically would be like, right, get some fish. That's reasons. Reasons should be here as well. How do we get this fish? Right, by observing the patterns in intuition. I know fish live in water. I'm going to go find some water and go fishing. Thinking, jump in and be like, hey, we don't need to go to the river. We can go to the supermarket. Then feeling can interject and be like, yeah, but supermarkets suck and fishing is more fun. I like to fish. Right. So we were using 4 different, with this little conversation is happening all the time in your head. I hope I don't send anyone, Billy, and they called me crazy. You will be by the end of this. Okay. We're going to start. This is where this system gets really kind of, I like it for this fun stuff coming up. So if I put in another little box here, in this sort of purpley shade, we call this perceiving. No, sorry. I got this backwards. No, sorry. No, sorry. Oh, wait, I do have this backwards. Wait. Judge. Oh, yeah, damn it. Oh, I got the colors backwards. Ugh. All right, I'm going to have to do a... No, oh man, I'm going to have to, like, how do I edit this quick on the fly? This T should be green. Oh man, I apologize for that, because this is going to screw up the other thing later on. All right. Sorry. This is backwards. All right, that's supposed to be green. Oh, God. No professionalism here. So this is going to make a bit of a boo-boo for my other little slides, because those are going to be backwards as well now. Right, I should have changed the colors on these two up here. All right, sorry. Okay, so perceiving. You get two perceiving. How you perceive, how you observe. These are also known as observing functions. Your intuition and your sensing are both observing functions. They're both perceiving functions. And judging isn't in the sense of being like judgmental and critical or scrutinizing. This is judging in terms of how you come to a decision. So judging is also known as deciding. So these are your judging functions or your deciding functions. T, thinking, and F, feeling. How you come to a decision. So perceiving, how you take in data, how you look at data, information, your senses, and then you're judging, how you come to making decisions. Now, where this gets fun, right? You're going to hear me talking about coins or pairing. So, what's a good way of me putting this? So you're always having this duality aspect in you, and this pairing, or sometimes called a coin, heads and tails. And you'll see here, I've grouped, there's two coins here. This green loop is meant to represent like a coin. So you have one judging function paired up like heads with tails with a perceiving functions. So you get best of both worlds. You get one perceiving function to help you take in some data, and you get one judging function to help you act upon that data. But it gets better than that, because that's just half your brain. You've got the same deal going on the other side. And you can think of this as like having a co-pilot. So you've got a backup system when it comes to reaching a decision in the end. You've got cross-reference, just in case maybe one of these two was sleeping on the job. You've got a backup co-pilot that says, hey, there's another way we can look at things, and take that into consideration as well. So you make a more, in total, together with both of these coins, you make a more responsible, maturer, more aware decision in the end. So everyone has all four of these functions: thinking, intuition, sensing, and feelings, and everyone pairs them up with like one judge and one perceiving, as well as one of these will be introverted and one of these will be extroverted. So you get it all. Where it becomes different is which side of the coin you like to look at the most. Here's another pair. You've got the sideways pair. And again, note how it's best of both worlds. You get one perceiving, one judging. And the same up here, one judging and one perceiving. So you've got this crossover again, like a fail safe. Another way of looking at things just to verify that everything is harmonious and all systems are go. Yes, we'll go ahead with that. I've thought about it several different ways using these different these different pairings. I've cross-referenced it with other parts of my brain, and so yes, we've come to a good decision. And another point I want to make here as well, while we talk about brain, is these lower two quarters here, sensing and feeling. This is the more animalistic, like when the brain is, if I go back to this diagram, which one is it? This one. When you're a little baba, when you're a little baby, your brain is like a tree. It grows. This is the trunk. It grows this way outwards. So the prefrontal cortex is the last thing to really develop. Again, another reason why adolescents and teenagers make poor decisions, because this part of judgment hasn't been developed yet. So when we talk about cluster B disorders, stunted emotional development, they've developed as far as their emotional state, and that's as far as they've went. They haven't taken it further. The higher brain awareness. So back to this one. So this is the more animalistic, older, mind you. This is older. This has been in existence longer than the upper two quarters here. This is like the prefrontal cortex. So these are not as experienced. However, they are more, I don't want to say evolved as if it's better. This isn't a competition of which is better or not, but because sometimes you can't beat the OGs, the OGs, the OGs. I mean, the OG. You can't really beat the original gangster, like, you know. So that's why feelings will always, if it was a fight out between thinking and feelings are going to win because it's got experience. It's been around longer. Uses less brain energy in a way, and much more reactive and instantaneous because it's a lot closer to that brain stem. The higher brain functions, the prefrontal cortex especially, has more brain matter to travel through in order for it to reach the brain stem. So it takes a bit more time and effort and patience and maturing. So there's a difference here as well, right? So let's say you haven't got time to think and use your intuition, you know, your front half of your brain. Well, then you're going to fall back on this backup co-pilot system and use what's here, so sensing and feeling. Right, let's move on. Now there's another, so we've got pairing like that, and we've got a pairing like that. This is looking a mess. But guess what? There's another pairing. You can also get rid of that one. You can also crossover pairing. So this is every combination of using your functions you can have. And in that way, you're covering all bases. This has its pros and cons as well. So in a way, this is kind of using some advanced brain function with some more animalistic, primordial or primeval brain function. The downside of this pairing is that it does, you lose the, I've not really, what do you lose? You lose the one and one. So instead of having one decider and one perceiver, now both perceiving is tied together and both judging is tied together. Rightio. Okay. Whew. Are we still following? Is this okay, right. So let me just check my okay, I think we're still on track. I have a Word document to go through as well simultaneously. So let me get rid of all of that for now. You know what? I'm going to have to like, this is such and because I got those colors backwards. Right. All right. So, luckily I got it the right way around here. Intuition. Yeah. Sensing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah. So a little kind of so your perceivers and your judge. So, so intuition and sensing, N and S, sensing and intuition, N and S. They're both together. They're both perceived. So if someone says to you, you know, so and so is using their perceiving functions, you won't really know if they're talking about their sensing function or their intuition. They're just pairing it and just saying, I don't know which out of the functions. We know we're not talking about thinking or feeling. We must be talking about sensing or intuition. So if you hear the word perceiving, it's referring to one of these two. It's like perceiving is the umbrella term. Same with the judges. Judges or deciders. It's the umbrella term for these two, thinking and feeling. So perceivers or perceiving functions, both of these, will generally take longer to reach a decision, even though they're not really making any decision. They experience life as it happens. Plans are loose and adaptive. They like to mix work and play together. Time is fluid, so they'll use all the time available in case there's new data, like last minute, and so they'll do like last minute tweaks. Someone who is more of a judger or a decider, they're more distinct, they're more conclusive, they're more decisive, they're more straight to the point. They're happier when decisions are made, so they don't want to dwindle. They're very conclusive, they're very rigid, they like control. They work and then they play. So there's a difference. So see how they work and then play, whereas a perceiver likes to mix their work and play together. And judges will keep track of time. They'll get the job done as soon as they get. If you give a decider a job, they'll get it done, so it's out of the way, and then the rest of the time is when they'll play. Whereas for a perceiver, you give them a job to do, they'll drag it out until the deadline, and then at the last minute they'll panic and try and rush the job through. So that might be something to bear in mind in the workplace setting environment. Something quite easily you'll notice with people or students who are revising for an exam is this a kind of person who likes to get their work done immediately and not waste any time and then play afterwards if they've got time left over? Or is this someone who's like dragging it out, they're mixing play and work together, and then they're in a last minute rush to complete it before it has to go in? And if you can identify this, you can actually outsmart the perceiver in a way, which is if they've got a deadline, let's say the deadline is, what day is today? Tuesday? Let's say the deadline in real life is Friday. Well, don't tell them that. Tell them the deadline is on Wednesday. You see what I'm doing? We're tricking them. So then they kind of get off their butt and get the work done. So underneath this umbrella term, then, just a little kind of recap, you're going to hear this sort of stuff over and over again to help sort of burn it into your mind. So sensing, typically we're talking about the five senses. They like data, they like facts, they like to verify it, they like it checked, they like practical, concrete, they like authorities as a result. They have very good memories. So if you want someone to remember something for you, ask someone who has strong sensing. These are the kind of people who will be asking for receipts, right? They'll be fact checking you. They want proof. They like things that work in a linear process. Intuition, a lot of people, they'll talk about their gut feeling, or they don't realize the expanse of intuition in this setting. But intuition covers things like ideas, concepts, context, subtext between, metaphors, analogies, things like that. They look for patterns. They look for, I've got metaphors written here. Symbols, metaphors, connections because of patterns. They like reading between the lines, abstract. And I should have added here things like they tend to look towards the future. They're visionary. They see, because they're seeing the patterns, they're seeing how it connects and the concepts and the things that you can't quite, things that aren't material, that you can't hold in your hands in the real life like you can with a sensor. So this covers the other side of the coin. So you could look at these two as a coin. And so intuition does play an important role in your cognitive stack. You need intuition to some degree. Otherwise, how will you be able to plan for tomorrow? Okay, thinking, pretty straightforward and pretty self-explanatory. Methodical, optimized, efficient, analytical. It focuses a lot on reasons. And feeling, emotions, values, and priorities. Those are the kind of two big ones to associate with the word feeling. And reasons is the big one to associate with thinking. That's going to come up later on, and you'll see, because as much as people have reasons, it won't matter if there's no value or priority attached to it. Like that fishing example. Okay, so thinking comes along. So sensing said we need fish, we're hungry. Intuition says, okay, we'll go to the river. I've noticed a pattern. There's fish in the river. That's where we can find fish. Thinking says we can go to the supermarket instead because it's a lot quicker, it's closer, and whatever. Now, thinking is just bashing. It's just number crunching. It just says these are the options. So how are you going to make a decision then if on one hand you say you can get fish from a supermarket, and on the other hand you say, well, I can also get fish from the river? How are you going to pick? Well, the decider in the end will be your feeling. Will be, well, how do you value it? How do you want to prioritize it? So now let's have a look at. Okay, wait. Before we go on to the next one, back to this one for a second. I just want to mention something. Oh, no, not that one. Get rid of the coin. Right, so we've got 4. This is 4 functions. Divide each function in 2. Thinking can be introverted thinking, or extroverted thinking. Introverted intuition, extroverted intuition. Extroverted sensing, introverted sensing, and so on, right? So from 4, we now have 8. So we have 8 functions. Okay, now I can get rid of that. So let me bring up the 8 functions. And again, a little brain up here just to sort of remind us. So N for intuition, we'll start off with N. We divide it into 2, right? On the left, we'll have introverted intuition, and on the right, extroverted intuition. Now, maybe before we get into that, introverts like to organize. They like to organize their stuff, and extroverts like to gather stuff. I know we're gonna have to get past this idea of how introverts are like people who like to stay indoors and extroverts are party goers. That might be applicable in other schools of thought, but not here. It has a totally different meaning. Introverts here is more privatized, personal, is organized, is keeping stuff inside and organized to what's relevant to that person, the self. Extroverts are more open and looking outwardly to gather in, to verify with the tribe or other people, everyone but myself. So if we take intuition as just one of the functions, this ain't in any particular order. So if we take, you already had a quick idea of what intuition is. It's about patterns, connections, concepts, abstract ideas, and things like that. Well, if we charge it and make it into like an introverted intuition, then we're looking at a singular vision pertinent to that individual. Again, patterns and abstract, yes, and concepts of the future, but it is all personal based for that person. Whereas on the other side, extroverted intuition would like to find the many possibilities. It likes the multiverse idea. It's alternatives, options, choice, and it's indecisive. It gives you, if you need someone to give you some possible options, go ask an extroverted, someone who's got extroverted intuition. If you've got so many options and you want to whittle it down just to a singular kind of, look, we just need one goal here, one mission, then go ask someone with introverted intuition for that instead. They'll funnel it down. So you see how they're sort of opposite. They're dealing with the same kind of stuff, possibilities, future, looking into the crystal ball and all that. But one of them is looking into the sort of multiverse, multi possible outcomes, not really decisive, doesn't know which one to pick. But it can see all the, I was going to put rabbit hole. It's like it can see all the many rabbit holes, whereas introverted intuition will focus in, hone in on just the one rabbit hole and be like, that's the one we're going to explore. So maybe before I carry on with the other ones quickly, if you look towards the bottom, so the introverts as a general definition is subjective, all right? It's personal. It's for that self, for that individual. So this is a subjective point of view. It narrows down, it condenses, it's conclusive. It likes already known knowledge, like old stuff, things it already knows. It doesn't like having to go out shopping for new information. So it likes old established stuff. It's concentrated energy, is rigid, is very laser beam focused, consolidated, and heavily invest. As a result, becomes heavily invested because it's, this is for the self. So it's me that it's only me that matters. So I'm going to invest all my energy into prioritizing myself. Whereas the extroverted are objective. They're open-ended. They like the new knowledge. They like new experiences. They kind of go with the flow. They're more malleable, more adaptive. They spread out. Their field of view is a lot broader, and their spread of energy is a lot broader than the introverts who concentrate their gaze and their energy and their resources. So the extroverted is about consideration for everyone else, and the introvert is consideration just for myself. I don't really care about everyone else. Now, before you jump the gun and say, "Oh, that's me," well, maybe so, maybe not. The point is remember with the coins, you get the best of both worlds. So if it's gonna make a little bit more sense in the next slide, but let's say you got introverted intuition. This is one of the perceiving functions. What's the other perceiving function? It's sensing. Well, you've already got introverted sensing. You've already got introverted intuition. So you're not going to have introverted sensing. You're going to have extroverted sensing. So there's the pairing of introverted and extroverted under that one category of a perceiving function. So there, you can't quite say, "Oh, I'm an introvert." Then you're actually both. You got an introverted function as well as an extroverted function. The prominence is which one is higher up in the function stack, and that's what you're going to notice more. And it's probably what you're identifying with when you say I'm an introvert in this scenario. It's probably because you notice your introverted intuition, but you're ignoring the fact that you've also got extroverted sensing. And the same goes with these two. Let's say you've got FE, then that's one of the deciding functions. Well, what's the other deciding function? It's a thinking function. If you've got FE, extroverted, then the other deciding function is going to be an introverted thinking. So if you've got FE, it's paired up with TI, introverted thinking. And this is, by the way, this is how they abbreviate it. So capital letter for the function, little letter, lowercase, whether it's an introverted function or a extroverted function. So FI is introverted feeling, TI, introverted thinking. Okay, so back to a quick breakdown of the difference between introverted and extroverted, in this case now sensing. So we already know that sensing is dealing with like facts, data, details, reality. It's in the present moment. It likes its five senses. Well, if you're more of an SI person, you've got SI in your function stack, you'll be very consistent. You'll be very good at routines and you'll be very stable. You'll be quite some people might call you a bit of a kind of like a party pooper, because while everyone is trying to pull you out to do random things, you'll be like, no, today I got to eat. It's 5 o'clock. No, come hell or high water, I must do some aerobic exercise or whatever it is. I've scheduled this, like this is my thing. And very I don't want to make it sound mean, but like self-centered. They're very aware of how they are internally. So if they feel hungry, they'll be like, yes, I feel, or I'm in pain. They'll be very attentive to their self. This is introverted, this is self. If it was extroverted, then this is more they're prone to the changes in the environment like around them. Like this SI wouldn't care if the world around them changed. They're still going to do what they're still going to do. But SE neglects their self and is more focused on what's happening around them. They're looking at things like the tribe and the environment. So they're exposed to new experiences, and it can seem a bit like chaos to them. So as it goes, I have SE, fourth position, and it's like I don't like the idea of chaos, surprises, unexpected or unplanned, or changes to routine or changes to a schedule. It's chaos. So people like that, or like me even, we need a bit of reassurance. We need, like, if you're going to say you're going to meet me at a certain time, you better be there at a certain time. Don't leave me hanging. Otherwise, I might have a panic attack or something, or I might stop trusting you. So trust becomes an issue. And as such, they expect some loyalty as well. You keep your word. If you say you're going to do your end of the bargain, you better keep your word, because we don't like the unpredictability of the changes. Because if sensory is trying to keep you in reality, and reality is not lining up, then it's failing. It's unable to do its job at keeping you grounded. How you know what time of day it is if someone keeps changing the clocks around you? So it doesn't. That's why it doesn't like that. Okay, so feeling, these ones are a lot more easier to grasp. So FI goes deep with how they feel personally inside with them. And also, by the way, when it's introverted like this, there's no need, unless they choose to share this out with other people. It's like, I know how I feel, and I ain't going to tell any of you how I feel. It's none of your business, kind of thing. Same with thinking. I know what I'm thinking. I'm going to do as what my thinking tells me to do, and I don't care what the rest of you think. Whereas on the flip side, so FI or TI can make someone appear pretty stubborn and arrogant, because it's like you're so stuck in your head and rigid. Remember, because rigid, introversion, subjective, narrows down, it's intensity. So this could be looked at as a selfish kind of person sometimes, and they're only just thinking about themselves and don't really care about hurting other people's feelings. Whereas on the flip side, with the extroverted feeling, they like people, they like harmony, they can sense the vibe of a room, and they can read a room, and the way they have a sense of their own feeling is by verifying it with the tribe. And the same goes with thinking. So let's say you've got a project, you've invented an item. I've invented the new phone or whatever. A TI user, someone who has a strong TI, would be like, yeah, this makes sense to me. I know how this phone works. And it can be very complicated as a result, because they've invested a lot of personal time with this item. It makes sense to them, but does it make sense to the tribe? And this is where TE would turn to TI and say, you dummy, I don't understand what you've done here. You've made this overly complicated phone. And TI will say, it's not overly complicated. I know it. I know it inside and out. I'm very familiar with it. The problem here is that you're stupid. And TE goes, no, I'm not stupid. It's that you've made this too hard for everyone else to understand. So TE, if this was marketing, TE would make it, it's like general knowledge, so it'll be universally understood by ease of operation for everyone. We need to make this practical so that an idiot can come along and use this item. So if you're in marketing, products and things like that, you want your customers to be able to use your product, get someone with TE. But if you need a specialist on board who knows it intricately, who's an expert, get someone with TI, because they'll go deep with it. And you might, if I'm already losing you in this stream, it's probably because I'm going too deep with my TI. NI is what kind of narrows down the rabbit hole. TI is what's going to take you through the rabbit hole, deep into the belly of the beast. TE will do a surface understanding of each of the rabbit holes. So I apologize if I'm like, oh, what the hell's going on? It's probably I'm just trying to rush through with. I'm just trying to blast you with as much TI and guide you down, take you down. So those are the 8 functions. We have all 8. Each and every one of you has all 8. The question is how they're arranged, how they're stacked up. 4 of these functions will be your top 4. The other 4 will be your shadow. So the top 4 tends to be what we would call ego syntonic. Is what you identify with. If you sit down long enough and think, a little bit of introspection, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know when I'm talking from feelings point of view. Now I know when I'm talking from a sensory point of view. Now I know when I'm using my intuition, and now I know when I'm using my thinking. That's me kind of thing, you might say. That'd be that's you lining up with your ego collectively. Top 4 functions. Well, the shadow 5, 6, 7, 8 is the inverse. We'll cover that if we've got time. We'll go into that a little bit later. We'll just concentrate on the top 4 primarily. Okay. All right. So next slide. Now, is this going to be it? All right. Hold on. Divergent. Why is that like that? Where have I got this? Why is that? Oh, right. That's why. Okay. So get rid of that second. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me just check the chat. Am I flying through too quick? Okay, so yeah. All right, what up, everyone? Okay. Now, this is so let's break down this four letter INFJ or I'm an INFJ. What do these letters actually mean? They in of themselves mean nothing. Oh, right. I don't want to blast you with all of this straight away. Let me get rid of a lot of that. Let's introduce it bit by bit, because otherwise it's just going to be an eyesore. So you've got the 4 lines, right? Like INFJ. And remember this idea of coins. So each of these lines, in a way, each of these letters is a coin. You get to pick one, and we can do some real time. Let's do some real time. Someone shout out. Someone shout. We'll write it up here somewhere. Come on, Photoshop. Don't fail me now. Why is it so tiny? All right. What is it? Why can't I see anything? Where did it drop this layer? Hold on. All right, let's try here. All right. So pick a letter, I or E. Oh, someone pick a letter. Someone type in I or E. Or if you want, just pick one from each of these placeholders. So either an I or an E, followed by either an S or an N, followed by a T or an F, followed by a J or a P. And whatever someone types in quickly, we'll okay, I see an I. All right, so first letter I. All right, what's the next letter? N. All right, we've got an N. Next letter. T. All right. And all right, Bingus. All right, you get a P. So TP. All right, there we go. We'll work with that. All right. Now the way I do this, the I and E will only sit on this place in this you won't get an I or an E any other section, right? That's this coin. Same with all the others. S and N will only sit here. And T and F only there, J and P only there. You won't get an F over here, you won't get a T over here, or an S or whatever. So the way I quickly work out what does this mean, in this case INTP, I tend to look at the last letter first. So in this case, it's the P. Let me put a little, so now maybe I can put, this might help out a little bit. So the last letter is your first extroverted function, and Bingus chose P. So that means whatever the perceiving function, these are the perceiving functions, S or N, whichever one of this is going to be extroverted. So whoever it was chose an N. So we know straight away, just from that, that we've got a extroverted N. So N extroverted somewhere. The first function. So after you know which is the first extroverted function, you can now look at the first letter, I. I is the first function. And in this case, it's introverted. Introverted what? Well, the N has already been taken up, so it's introverted thinking. So the first function it isn't going to be NE. It's going to be, the first function is going to be introverted thinking, TI, followed by the second function, the second function, which is extroverted, which is N. So the first function and the second function. TI is first, NE is second. Now, we'll go into how this carries over to the other functions, but from deduction, you can then say the third function is going to be SI, and the fourth function is going to be FE. How do I know this? Because look, introvert, extrovert, introvert, extrovert. So it alternates. It will always alternate. You'll never get two introverts next to each other. Like same with a coin. You don't get two heads on the same coin, and you don't get two tails on the same coin. It's always heads and tails, heads and tails. And well, okay, let me bring in some other little bits and bobs. All right, okay, so let me hide that. Let me hide that because it's gonna get a bit disorientating. Let me start bringing some of this stuff up. All right, so those are little lines. Oh, get rid of that, not that one. 4 coins, green coins. Right, okay, so the green ones are in particular, right? So if you look where the perceiving is, points down to where the perceiving is. So this slot, this allocation is for the perceiving, and the one next to it is for judging or deciding, perceiving, judging, perceiving, observing, judging, deciding. Extroversion likes to gather and introversion likes to organize. So just a few reminders. And the 1, 2, 3, 4 is how we're going to stack these up. So again, with this coin thing, we will see that 1 and 2 create a coin. And this is all what these letters are telling you. They're just telling you what the top 2 functions are. It's for you to deduct. It's for you to, like work from knowing 1 and 2. You can then work out the rest. So you got 1 and 2, and then you got 3 and 4. So you get 2 coins. If 1 is introverted, then you already know that number 3 is also going to be introverted. If 1 is extroverted, then you already know that number 3 is going to be extroverted. Same with 2 and 4. So you've got 2 coins here. Now, you also got another 2. You've got 4 coins here, really. Why didn't it say 4 coins? Because 2 and 3 is connected. Let's say 1 is extroverted, where you can see it's a different color, so it's going to be introverted. So you get both best of both worlds. with this crossover here. So that's a coin as well, indicated by this little line. 1 and 4 is a coin. Now this is the big jump, and this is the big imbalance. You see how close 2 and 3 are together? 2 and 3 are pretty well balanced. I think, and 1 and 4 is the most out of balance. So I think 90%, so now I have to use a bit of sensory. 90% is 1, 10% is 4. I think 60% is 2, 3 is 40%. So you get this kind of seesaw action. So let's add in a few more things for us to get overwhelmed with. So number 1 is known as your dominant. It's kind of like your boss. It's kind of like your hero function. It's sometimes called your hero function, even though it's your go-to function. If we're talking about the hero's journey, really, this is the opposite direction you want to be looking at. Your hero's journey is actually in number 4 and below. Your shadow is where your hero's journey is. But sometimes they call number 1 your hero. It's how you kind of see the world. I like to think of it as the hidden theme. When someone's talking to you, when they're jabbering away, if you don't, if you kind of fuzz out what they're saying, the particulars of what they're saying, and you just pick up on the general theme of what they're saying, what they're talking about, like the subject, that might be their number 1 function at play. It's always on. You can't really, you're not selective about this. It's always there in the background, kind of like autopilot. It's your natural state. It's got the most energy. It's where you're spending most of your time. It's where you would like to live your life if you could. Number 2, the auxiliary function, also known as the parent function. And this is usually what people will pick up on, and this is the mistyping. You're putting effort in here. It's a conscious effort, and you don't mind it. You like to put the effort in here. It's a second strongest function, but it can become a bit tiring. So let's say you've got, in my case, I've got FE as a second function. So that means a people's person. So you might think on one hand that I love to be around people, but I tell you what, it gets exhausting because it's a conscious effort. I have to constantly be vigilant that, am I hurting someone's feeling? I have to be careful with my words. Is there harmony going on? So that's effort there. So you can become tired from it. Empathy fatigue, some people might say, which makes you end up looking like a grumpy SOB. But, or someone who's got TE in their second function. They're always thinking. Well, it gets tiring. At some point, they're going to want to relax and turn their brain off and stop thinking so much. Tertiary, your child function, it's the innocent function. And it's often how you approach your hobbies. So this is kind of like your downtime, your chill out time. You've been too busy spending your day, your worldly day. You've been spending it with too much effort with number 2. Exerting yourself with number 2. Well, now it's time to enjoy some hobbies, kick back and relax. So off with number 2, on with number 3, and you're much more innocent-like in your hobbies. You can enjoy yourself a little bit more. And it also helps you to control your second function. Now, although they're stacked in a hierarchy kind of structure, don't think that this is a one-way street, that the boss is always going to be bossing its subordinates and the chain of command goes down. There is feedback. It does go back up the other way. And this is part of that understanding of relations and integration. You want all these functions to be working as a cohesive team. And then the inferior function is the weakest of your functions, of the top 4 anyway. And you don't like having to be responsible for it because it's your weakest. As a result, you try to ignore it. But if you do use your weaker function, you like to show off with it. So in my case, it's a bit of SE. That's my weaker function. I don't like random chaos in the world. I don't like surprises. But hey, let's say I did something out of the blue all of a sudden, and there's a good chance I'm going to want to show off to the tribe. Hey, look, everybody, today I went out and touched the grass. oh, look at me, I'm special kind of thing. So when you do use it, you like to show it off. You tend to anyway. And there's more reasons for that. It's like, why do you show that off and not your dominant function if that's what you're very skilled at doing? Because you take it for granted, because it's nothing, it's not of value to the tribe if you're always doing it. What's of value is the rarity, the changes that people will notice. So there's a simple case of, if you're always doing something, it gets taken for granted, then there's no it's like what you normally do, isn't it? It's like, well, then there's no point me mentioning it then, is there? But if I do something out of the ordinary, now it's like, woohoo, check it out. Okay, so I think I'm at a point now where I can basically I wonder if I explained how to read this function. Oh wait, there is another slide I wanted to show. So I tend to look at the last letter first. That tells you which of these two is going to be the extroverted. And depending on what, so we'll just do another quick random one. Let's say someone says, we'll do one that starts off with an E. E, S, F, P. Something like that, right? So if we look at the P, well, we know we don't need to look at, where does the P direct us? It directs us, follow the line, it directs us to over here. One of these is going to be extroverted. Which is going to be extroverted? It's the letter that's indicated, the S. So we know that this S is extroverted. Now we look over to the first function. Is the first function going to be introverted or extroverted? Well, E, the first function, is going to be extroverted. And we know the first extroverted function is S. So function number one is going to be SE. Oops, not capital E, little e. So we already know. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if that's SE, what's the brother or sister of SE? It would be NI. That's 1 and 4 already discovered. So in the middle, we've got thinking and feeling somewhere. Well, the other letter that's indicated is F. So if E is already taken care of, then we know that this is going to be FI. And if that's FI, then we know that that's going to be TE. So this is the function stack of the ESFP. 1, 2, 3, 4. They've got extroverted sensing as their boss. They've got introverted feeling. So how they feel, they're going to keep it private and they ain't going to tell you about it. It's none of your damn business. But they might tell you about what they're thinking. And they've got a little bit of singular vision of world concepts, abstract ideas. They like to funnel it down. And obviously with SE at the beginning, these are probably more the party animals that would like to go out and experience life and enjoy the surprises. They like the randomness. They like changing things up a little, spicing things up. So not my kind of person to hang around with if I'm honest. No offense to any of those ESFPs, but c'est la vie, that's how it is. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that helps you understand how to break them down. And then the shadow function is basically the inversion of, it's the same function order, but invert whatever function is introverted, make it extroverted, and vice versa. So if it was SE at the top, the fifth shadow function would be SI. And then it was what? FI. So the sixth would be FE. And then TE, so the seventh would be TI, and then the last was NI. So the eighth demon function would be NE. So that's the shadow functions stack of the ESFP. I apologize. People's brains are probably, my brain is melting. You're not alone here. Okay, let me just. All right, good, jolly good. Right. So that's generally what I'm covering with the Myers-Briggs thing. So then when I discuss what we're going forwards, you'll have a bit more of a contextual understanding of where it's coming from. And I really want to emphasize the the way in which these different areas of your mind communicate with one another and cover each other's backs. They watch out for each other. They're supposed to work as a team. They're supposed to give you a wider perspective. And all in all, go towards you making better decisions for yourself. This is all assuming that you haven't got anything wrong with you, like a mental disorder, you're on medication, you're not missing a brain or something like that. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes and I'm just wondering if it's worth giving some examples. Maybe not those examples, we'll see. Now, if you're unsure, because you might be a bit in two minds, like, oh, I feel a bit wishy-washy. Sometimes I am introspective and I do care about the tribe. So which one am I, sort of thing? Well, with deduction, if you struggle, you can try looking at the opposite function and seeing how well that lines up. And then maybe you can kind of like backtrack and be like, right. Turns out I don't really care about the tribe and I prioritize myself above everyone else. There we are. So I lead with a introversion, whether it's in your thinking or your feelings or your intuition or sensing. Let's see. Now, if you want to do any self-improvement, another way of looking at this pairing of coins is imagine your two hands, right? Let's say you've got feeling in one hand and you've got thinking in the other hand. And you're trying to, you're weighing them up side by side and you favor one hand more than the other. So obviously you're going to be a lot stronger with that hand and the other hand is going to pay the price of being weaker. So you might think that this is fine. I'll just not bother acknowledge I've got a weaker hand and I'll just use my strong hand for everything. So let's say a lot of people in this sort of community want to be leading with their logic. They say fifis are bad and logic for the win. Okay, fine. That's all well and good. So you approach every situation with your strong hand. Well, what's going to happen when suddenly, for whatever reason, you can't use that strong hand? Now you have to rely on your weak hand. It's too weak. It's not going to help you. Or you need to use both your hands. You can't do it because your weak hand has been neglected. So you're gonna, if you like it, if you want to be that logical, you would have to exercise. You would say to yourself, like, you exercise your weaker limb, right? You have to ease off the strong one, stop being so overly reliant, stop putting it on steroids, and build up the strength of your weaker function. And so what that tells you is that you're only really, as strong as you might be in your thinking, it only really counts as high as your weak. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So you can exercise that strong hand as much as you want. It's not going to make up for the fact that you haven't done anything about the weaker aspects, and that will be your undoing. That's where people will get you. That's where you're going to fall flat. That's where you're going to have a critical error or a cognitive failure because you weren't balancing out your two hands so that they were equally as good. Now going back to this chart here, so 2 and 3. All right, so for those playing along at home, you should probably already know what my function stack is. So NI is my number 1. I'll try and line them up if I can. FE, TI, and down here is SE. That's me. Because 2 and 3 are a lot closer, they're actually more imbalanced. So for me, that's feeling and thinking. They're more in balance. My feeling is only a little bit better than my thinking, but they're pretty much just as good as each other. So, and if whatever combination you guys have, same thing. Your 2 and 3 are pretty much as strong as each other. It's just a very little bit different. Not as bad as 1 and 4. So my intuition is a lot stronger, way stronger than my feelings, my thinkings, and my sensing. And my sensing is the weakest. This is the biggest imbalance I have. What does this mean? It means well, in particular with NI, my the way I see patterns and abstract concepts and connections and things like that doesn't really line up very well with reality. Like, give me real day. It kind of it's real world stuff stops me from daydreaming my fantasy. You know, I would love to live in a fantasy, but reality comes along and says, "Hey, Billy, stop living in La La Land. You've got some work to do. Get on with it." Okay, sorry, you know. But the reason why I bring this up is because let's say, and I'm not sure what, oops, I'm not sure what type this would be. I can't be bothered to work out what type it is. But let's say you got feelings. Let's say, I don't know, just put feelings up at the top. Let's say you got feelings up there instead. And let's say you got, so this would border the opposite be. It would be PE, right? PE. Someone else. Oops. Because they've got their feeling and their thinking at the polar opposites, this type of person will struggle to have a sense of self. They won't know who they are as much as, say, I would. I would have a more my sense of self, value, and what I think, my reasons and values closely line up. So I can have a consistent conceptualized idea of who I am, even though for the most, even though I can be confused about it. It's close. Where it's out of sync for me is my NINSC. But if you've got your feeling and thinking out of sync, and this could be a T, it could be the other way around. This could be a T, and this could be an F. These are worlds apart. Your thinking is way off, out of alignment with your feeling. So that's just a little fun thing you can tease people who have their feeling, and that'll be half the out of the 16 personality types. That'll be half of them. Okay. So you might think, well, what about the woke? Well, maybe that's why either their thinking and feeling are lining up and they're just balmy and woke, or perhaps there's a huge chasm between their critical thinking and their emotional thinking, and that's why they can't see things. Now there is another slide I want to go into, but let me just make sure I'm keeping track of my my write up here. So here's something that might be a bit more pertaining to the community we're in. Ever notice amongst our people, they'll have logic and say, look, we're spitting red pills here. No, here are the facts, people. No contact, no this, no that. These are the ultimatums, or these are the bottom line. These are the conclusions. Okay, right. So theoretically, right, what's the problem here? Why is it this community seems to be rife with problems? What's going on? Theoretically, everything should be hunky-dory. Everyone's got the answers. Everyone's taken the red pill. Everyone's critical minded. Everyone's controlling their emotions. So what's the problem? What's going on? People aren't happy. Why not? Well, it's indicating that there is, and the same thing, they can't quite place their finger on it either, because it's sort of like it's blind to them. It's in the shadows, and so quite often this is like a repression or a suppression of not wanting to admit that there is actually some feelings that need to be considered here. And that's what I was saying with this two-hand thing. You can't be championing your thinking and neglecting your feelings. It will come back and bite you on the ass. And that's where this deep pain and trouble, people aren't putting their finger on it because they're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. And it's like, you can't divorce yourself from yourself, unfortunately. And the same works vice versa. This is the problem like the feminists are having. It's all about feeling love and light and everything like that. And they're doubling down on their feelings and not acknowledging any logic here. So basically, it's an inversion. And I'm not trying to make the statement that MGTOW is basically the same as feminine. It's just observations, right? Don't shoot me on it. Like we have a chance to actually do something about it. They don't. So hey, we got saving grace here, people. So yeah, the things that we repress become like a niggle. It's like an irritation, bottling up things and trying not to address them. The way in which people try to address it is by doubling down on their favorite hand or their hero function, the one that they're already good at, but they put it on steroids. And that's tying back to that stream I did about which wolf are you feeding. You're probably feeding the wrong one. You're doing the opposite. You're making it actually worse because you're expecting your hero to save you from things that it can't save you from. Only you can do that. Stop feeding steroids to your already good wolf. You need to exercise the weaker one and respect it. You don't have to like it, but you have to respect it. Otherwise, it's going to come back and bite you on the ass. So yeah, so try not to disassociate from parts of yourself. And this coin idea, how it's linked, how your feelings and thinking are linked. They're both valid decision makers. They're both deciders, right? So they're both as legit as one another. Same with introversion. Same with intuition and sensing. Those are both perceiving functions. They're both just as legit as one another. And they're both tied together. So when you try to dissociate, or when you're in two minds, what do we call this? When you're in two minds, you have cognitive dissonance. So the more out of balance you are, the more cognitive dissonance you'll have. So going back to this chart thing here. So there isn't much separation between 2 and 3. So on the whole, you wouldn't really expect to see cognitive dissonance here. It might happen, but it's not going to be as bad as between 1 and 4. And you can also have dissonance between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. They can also have disagreements. These are like 4 characters inside your head. I'm not trying to make people lose their minds with multiple personalities or something, but it just helps to illustrate that you can have multiple cognitive dissonances happening simultaneously and in different sections of your mind, between different areas of your mind. It's not just my feelings and my thinking doesn't match up. It could be your intuition and your sensing. There's dissonance. You're in two minds. You're split. And obviously, there's a whole section on the problems of dissonance. You become instinctual. Your self-esteem gets torn up. It's problematic. We'll just say that. We'll just put it like that. So more reason why exercising a balance between your functions will help resolve cognitive dissonance, is what I'm saying. And it's going to happen. You'll never be 100% immune from dissonance. It's like, do you want fish tonight or do you want chicken tonight? Right. Oh, I don't know. I can't decide. Right. There you go. Cognitive dissonance. Immediate. Right. The point is, how do you manage it? How are you going to be responsible? How are you going to be responsible with your functions, with your 4 wolves inside your head? How are you going to be responsible with giving them the right kind of nutrition, equally and proportionately, or however you decide? Another point with cognitive dissonance, it'll also show that, so if you haven't got a very well developed mind, you haven't been developing these functions, you haven't been maturing with them and things like that, then if you can't, like, look at the more mentally ill and disordered, look how dissonant, how delusional they become as a result of their dissonance. Like we might think trauma, people who've experienced trauma have gone through a period of dissonance. Well, guess what? I mean, like the narcissist their whole existence is dissonance. You know, they have utter low self-esteem. They deep down they think they're a piece of crap, but then they think at the same time they are the best of the best and super powerful, the master and the slave, both at the same time, ping pong and total polar opposites. So so you can see how this kind of relates and makes it a bit more understandable. There is huge imbalance inside the heads of the mentally ill. Now here I'm talking about trying to strive for a balance. Now here's another, that's a misconception. You will never get a 50-50 balance. It will never be like that. 60-40 is pretty much as good as it's going to get, but it doesn't mean you don't try and bring up the lower ones so that they're more of benefit and use, so they can be be kind of like proficient with them. Like, because you can't expect to use a handful of functions, 3 out of the 4, to cover all 4 corners of your mind. You need all 4 to do all 4 types of jobs. So even though you can't get a total 50-50 balance, it's still in your best interest to kind of be proficient in using all of your functions so that you're not caught out in any way. So we'll talk about these shadow functions quickly. So the shadow functions have their benefits, and they can help reveal, like, when your top 4 functions are failing. So along comes your shadow functions and says, hey ego, hey champ, you're dropping the ball here. And it could also, like, once you acknowledge it and integrate it, it's actually on the same team as you. You might look at it as the counter to who you are, like your nemesis, your evil reflection or something like that, and you want to pretend it's not you, but it is you, and it's part of who you are, sort of thing. And is on the same team as you. So if you interpret the kind of signals and messages it gives you, it can indicate, for example, when you're being taken advantage of or being mistreated in some way, or you're not doing yourself a service or justice. And this is why it's emerging, because the ego is failing. The main system you've got operating you isn't adequate enough, or is fallen afoul somewhere. So when it does pop up, it might make you appear to other people as if you're, or maybe even yourself, that you're acting out of character. This isn't my usual self. And it's like, well, no, it's all right. It's not your usual self. This is the shadow coming out. So to other people, you might have mood swings. I think is like the biggest kind of noticeable symptom. I don't want to say symptom as if it's a bad thing, but of notice that comes up. Yeah, I won't actually. Maybe I'll just leave it there with the shadow, because otherwise. Well, in terms of seeing your shadow so someone out there will in their top 4 functions will be identical to your shadow. So someone out there will embody your shadow in a way, and because of that, you might be quite like either attracted or intrigued or interested in them in some whatever, there's something about them, and it's because they've got in their top 4 functions, they are skilled at the things that you are unskilled at, and that's why they kinda catch your attention. It's like, if I've got a demon, um, SI, but someone has it as function number 1, I'd be like, "Wow, how do you manage to use that function? Because that function for me is a demon," you know? But there you are, you use it as a hero. I don't I'm mystified, how do you do it, kind of thing. So there can be a opposites attract kind of thing going on. Not saying that you're gonna be best of friends, you could kill each other by the end of it, but it's just sort of like one of them things. But it also means that if you were having like a pairing up for whatever reason, maybe it's a detective TV show or something like that, then having someone who has your shadow functions is like having, I was talking about co-pilots before. Well, this would be like having a wingman, so meeting someone who has your shadow functions would be like having a wingman and you'd be their wingman. You'd cover each other's backs. Um, okay, so got a bit about the mistakes of mistyping, but let's see if I've got an example here. No, I just got a bunch of examples. I'm not sure they're really going to be useful. I'm trying to factor in how much I'm maybe overloading. Okay, let's cover some mistyping the and then we'll sort of try and wrap it up a little bit, I think. Um, so really, you're going to need people's. You're going to need the help of other people to sort of notice things about you, or like try not to go on anecdotal. Oh, they said good morning to me. They must be a people's person. That means they've got FE. It's like, not necessarily. Just because they said it doesn't mean they're a FE person. They might be FI. So you can't just jump at things that you've heard people say or maybe things that they've done and go, bingo, I know who you are exactly. Doesn't quite work like that. Um, Case in point, let's say you've got someone who is FE, right? Like I'm an FE, right? So I like to see what people are feeling. What's the vibe in the room? Is everyone happy? Is everyone okay? Is someone a little bit upset? Hey, everyone else is happy. Okay, what can we do to cheer this person up? I'm interested in people's well-being. I want people to be happy, right? But let's say I'm sitting there in silence and I'm just observing people to see how people are, right? You might think, oh, Billy, he's not said anything. I think he must be introverted, feeling. It's like that's not the case. Just because I haven't said anything doesn't mean I'm introversion. Like being extroverted doesn't necessarily mean I have to output. It just means I am observant of my surroundings. If I was introverted, I wouldn't care what other people were feeling. I'd be like, that's whatever. I don't care how they're feeling. I just care about how I feel. It's my introverted feeling is my business, and only those in my close circle would I maybe tell or trust. But everyone else don't have the right to know how I feel. So just because someone might be extroverted doesn't mean they're going to make a song and dance about it. They could be sitting there in silence, just observing what's happening around them. It's the it's the it's the which direction of expression does someone choose? Where do they put their focus? Are they putting their focus outwardly, or are they putting it inwardly? So basically, what I'm saying is, like, don't be so quick to come to a verdict when trying to type someone or type yourself. It's not. You don't base it on singular incidents of things happening. You wanna plot it over a period of time and see a consistency of what's taking place. What is their normal behavior? And this is where other people can also help and try not to skew the data by implanting suggestive ideas and say to them, "Hey guys, I'm not an asshole, am I?" Because you're basically saying to them, "Please tell me that I'm not." So you're kind of putting words into their mouth when you phrase it questions like that. You want to try and be objective. And there's mistyping is actually very, very, very common. So, like I was saying before, opposites attract. So you naturally, here's a funny one. So you kind of naturally reject who you actually are in favor of who you want to be. Like, remember what I said? So you're not going to get recognition for what you normally are. It doesn't make you a unicorn. So if you can promote one of your lower skills, usually like a demon, and say, "Look what I've done, everybody. This is who I am striving to be." Well, who you want to be isn't who you are. So if you're typing yourself as a certain thing, in a way, what you're saying is to everyone is like, "I wish I was a." When you say like, "I'm an INFJ," for example, in a way, there's a good chance what you're doing is saying, "I wish I was an INFJ. I aspire to be an I want to be an INFJ." That means you're not one. That means you're something else, maybe an INFP or something. Um, so more reason just to be a little bit more careful where you're declaring what kind of things you're declaring, because unless you've done your diligence, you might end up with a bit of egg on your face. Just saying. Um, and that opposites thing is, there's a few other examples, maybe I won't go into those examples right now, of where they it's like, you're slipping on a banana skin, which is like, oops, like how you don't notice your first function because it runs in the background, but people notice your second function, and that's usually what they pick up on. So that's going to be the opposite version, like introversion or extroversion. They're going to, like, you might say, "Hey Billy, you're on streams a lot. I think you're an extrovert." Turns out, no. If I got introverted intuition as number one, I'm actually introverted as a primary dominant function. Um, so makes you sort of second guess. And there is another kind of mirror aspect which makes you not see what you really are, and instead you see quite literally a total into a opposite of your type. Apparently, this is it's so common that it's pretty much a given. It's like whenever someone says something, more than likely, bet your bottom dollar, it's going to be the total opposite of what they actually are. "I'm innocent, your governor." It's like, "Oh yeah, guilty as charged." "I swear I didn't do it." Well, we know who did it. Um, and obviously, if you're making observations, you're making observations of what is is observable. So you can't see what went into this equation to produce its outcome. You're already looking at the outcome. This is what we've got. This is who we're dealing with. You don't know what went in. And who you are isn't what comes out, it's actually what goes in. So you need to work out, you need to kind of like backtrack it and work out what's going in here to produce what's coming out. And if you go forward without this clarification, if you get this mistyping thing, you get it wrong, and you think, yeah, I'm going to double down on it, then don't be surprised that your imbalances will get worse, because you're going around thinking you're something that you're not, and you're trying to adjust, or you're trying to optimize in the total wrong areas. So, like those who have listened to me before, let's say I might talk about this. I'll use looking out the window at the landscape, right? Oh, Billy, you're dreamer. Then you might think, well, he's looking out of the world, right? So he must be a sensor. Oh, he went out and touched the grass. Oh, yeah, so he's one with nature or something, right? Oh, so he's a sensor. So Billy, you need to increase your intuition. That'd be the opposite advice, because even though I might say, hey, everybody, guess what I did today? I looked out the window. There's me showing off my weaker, inferior function. Look, everybody, I showed, look, I looked out the window, I touched a tree or whatever. I'm not ever talking about my daydreaming as such, if you notice. I don't go on about the patterns I see, the abstract concepts and the connections of the universe or something like that. No, I'll just be like, oh, look, I saw a butterfly. With my vision, my sensory vision. So it'd be easy for people to be fooled and think, oh, Billy's a sensor. He's got lead sensing. So opposites are true, kind of thing. If someone says they've got like an IQ of 147, they've probably got an IQ of minus 147. It's probably more accurate. And obviously self-typing, like people do these tests, that's constantly being like debunked or not taken as seriously. It's like, hey, there's already a bias when you're doing these questionnaires, and people who have TE have to be a little bit more careful, because they take into consideration what the tribe says. So if a questionnaire says that you're such and such a tribe, a TE person will be less inclined to question the authenticity of it. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just how it is. And just because someone has TE doesn't mean they don't, just because they factor in and consider the tribe, doesn't mean they don't have any thoughts of their own, or have any value to their thoughts. It just means they factor it in with everybody else. They go, right, these are my thoughts, these are the tribe's thoughts. Okay, where do we sit with one another? Whereas someone with TI would be like, these are my thoughts and F everyone else. So a much more stubbornness with a TI user. They could be totally wrong. They'd be like, I don't care if I'm totally wrong. F you all. This is what I think, and I'm gonna, and these are my guns, and get off my land. So it has its pros and cons. So that's pretty much it. So in terms of relations and communications, if you take all of this on board and adapt it and things like that, you can start to see and work out where there are communication breakdowns, where friendships prosper. You can see what makes us click, and where are our strong points and where are our weak points. Where is it we have conflict? Please do not be using this as a way of a dating profiling, because one, it's very insultive straight off the bat. Like, we are not our MBTI types. I said at the very beginning, you are not, like, if you're an INFJ or whatever you are, that is not who you really, really are. You are a human being. There is a personality, I would like to think, besides all of that. And if you're going into whatever kind of relationship, not putting the human needs in front of this if you're putting MBTI stuff in front of everything else, then you're um you're you're trying to you're sterilizing the relationship. There's going to be no chemistry or friendship or any real bonding if you're looking at this as a mathematical or chemistry equation or formula, and you're just looking at the facts and figures and thinking, oh, on paper it seems to work. Well, why is it me and them are arch enemies? It's like, well, because they're people and they're not a piece of paper. That's why. And you're treating them like a piece of paper. Maybe that's why they decided to ignore you to begin with, because I didn't like the disrespect, you know. And just because theoretically that you two should be compatible doesn't mean you are. One might like dogs and the other one likes cats or something, or whatever. I don't know. And and also because, like at the start, I said this where this really is of use and benefit is in how you can approach problems and do some problem solving. So if you're looking at the potential of a relationship, whatever kind of relationship, as a problem, you're off to a bad start. You're like, I want to have a friendship with my next door neighbor, right? They're a problem. Like my relationship with my neighbor is a problem. I need to solve this problem. Like, dude, man, maybe stop treating it like a problem. So I've already had a few jabs at stupid people and mentally ill people and things like that. I suppose another thing I could add there is try not to take it personally if you find someone who is, let's say you don't get along with them, whatever their political or mental health is, you find out that they're the same type as you, and you're thinking, how is it we're so totally different? And you feel a little bit insulted by that. Just kind of, well, you might have the same kind of cognitive processing, stacking of your functions. It's just you're geared differently because you're different people. So these functions are geared to serve you, right? So if you're wanting, let's say you're trying to think of a career choice, you're not too sure what kind of field you want to go in. So let's say you're playing with some ideas and you're narrowing down your selection. You will gear your cognitive stack to facilitate whatever direction it is you decide to in the end, which means that you're adaptive. Well, you should be. You should. So you could have a job working in a warehouse, so you're very data, very logical, not really much need for emotions there. But then you get a job working in customer sales or services or on the reception desk, and so your mind is switching gears and reconfiguring to adapt to give you an optimized chance at success in whatever direction you're going to be going in. So the mentally ill people are optimized to be mentally ill. I shouldn't be mean. Yeah, so I think we'll pretty much wrap it up. I'm kind of exhausted. So just take time with this stuff. Don't be in such a rush. Don't be so quick to have a verdict or whatever. It's all right if you're confused, just the whole reason why I'm bringing this in is for the understanding of the relationship with how your brain communicates with this inner dialogue. So how they interact and influence one another. And this learning can be done in stages. You grasp these ideas of perceiving and judging, and then you build upon that with the ideas of coins and then definitions. So don't feel like you have to take it all in one go. You can actually segment, or section. You can stagger this learning pretty well, actually. You can compartmentalize topic or subject parts at a time to build up an understanding, and you go as far as you want with it, really. And so what so the reason why I'm bringing this is really in preparation for the next stages, which we will be looking into trauma, and the troubles in which that causes us, to help those of us who need to do some healing and get onto that recovery, and who struggle to identify the obstacles and overcome them. How do we hack trauma? So until then, I hope you're all well. I hope that was useful to you. Thank you all for being here. If there's got any questions, you can leave them in the comments or just send me an email. I see it. JR's got a question. Just having a quick look. What's this say here, JR? Let's see. Really, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the waking dream world, something I read about. The waking dream world. Could you expand on that quickly? The waking dream. Is that an actual thing, or are you just talking about like daydreaming? Waking dream world. I'm just trying to think. Is that known as something else? Like a psychological thing I read about. Maybe I'm not familiar with it. I'm going to say for now, I'm not familiar. JR says almost hypnosis or a trance thing. You're talking about like the lights are on, but no one's home, daydreaming, just off in a stare in your own sort of self-absorbed world. And some people might get a bit uncomfortable. They might say, "Oh, it's a sex beams," or a stalker or something like that. It's like, why are you looking at me like that? You're giving me the creeps. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just, my eyes are just like, so much cognitive processing going on that the eyes have like shut down. They're open, they're staring out, but the information, the electrical signals from your eyeballs along your optic nerve to your brain is interrupted. It's not getting any further than that. So no actual vision is being processed. But I'm probably just spitballing something totally different. I'm not too sure. But I'll tell you what, I'll write it down and I'll look into it for you. But yeah, the INFJ apparently, and the INTJs, and I'm sure pretty much everyone really, to try and make it sound like everyone's a unicorn. Everyone does everything. But someone with PTSD will probably have a bit of a kind of rabbit in the deer in the headlights sort of stare. Processing trauma. I don't know where I am. What's going on? How often is it happening though? It's like, kind of snap out of it, mate. Like, Jesus, you're always like that. It's like, oh, do I? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Blink, damn you. I am a robot. I don't blink. You mean lubricate my eyes? Screen wash. But yeah, I mean, For the person doing it, they probably don't realize they're doing it. For everyone else who's witnessing it, or if you're, especially if you're talking to them, it's like, dude, you're looking right through me. You're making me feel like I'm a ghost here. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, did you say something? So I was dreaming. Like, oh God. But if you balance out, right? Okay. So, all right, freestyling. Now, so that dreamy stuff usually is associated with intuition. Now, if you're really out of balance, like this, because I got intuition as a top function, and my sensory is meant to balance that out. It's meant to like snap me out into reality and be like, wakey, wakey, someone's talking to you. I stop daydreaming. Well, if I'm trying to shut off that part because I don't like it and live in dreamy land, then you can see how that will be really irritating and very common. It'll be happening all the time. So to rectify, to stop this from happening, to balance it out, you need to be more acknowledgeable and attuned to the opposite. In this case, it would be the sensory, to keep you reminded or grounded into reality and be like, hey, numbnuts, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. Everyone else has gone to bed. You're talking to yourself here. Say goodnight and go home, kind of thing. So that's where I see the kind of daydreaminess, and how you would, if you are doing it, it's probably like an indication, like, hey, you're a little bit, and every now and again, okay, fine, whatever, it happens. If it's happening at inappropriate times, like you're not paying attention, you're no longer listening to people or paying attention because you're too busy daydreaming. Now it's becoming. Imagine that happening when you're driving. What's you crashed your car. What's your excuse? Oh, I was daydreaming, your officer. Ain't gonna work. So there's a time and place for that. Dreaming is usually quite good when you're actually asleep. How about you save it for then? And use your sensory for the waking hours. Where am I? You're on the motorway. What am I doing? You're supposed to be driving. Oh, damn. But anyway, rambling on. It's pretty much 2 hours. So yeah, thank you. Whew. All right. So until the next stream, we'll be hacking into trauma. More brain surgery, everyone. Oh, it's fun stuff. All right. So until then, take care of yourselves, and thank you for being here and giving me your attention. All right. Adios.